Hello everybody, welcome to Rainer and Rainierbooks. Good afternoon, guten Abend und herzlich willkommen. Tonight I want to talk about Pride Month, and I want to give you some recommendations of Pride Month literature to read under June of 2020. It's actually the 50th anniversary this year. The first Pride parades took place in New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. 51 years ago, the whole LGBTQ movement really was starting to organize in a larger scale when the police in New York City raided a club called the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village in Manhattan. After that, in 1969, a couple of gay activist groups were formed in New York only a few months after, and a year after the riots of 1969, the first Pride parades occurred in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York. And, well, turbulent times, we're living in turbulent times again, but for this month, on the 28th of June, on the 50th anniversary, there will be no Pride parade, as you might know, in New York City because of the virus, because of the ongoing pandemic. Instead, there will be a global Pride parade, which will be broadcasted on the internet on the 27th and 28th of June. So everybody should stay tuned, where we celebrate the LGBTQ community. Now for you, 10 recommendations, 10 books that I sort of curated for a list of 10 books that you might want to read during Pride Month of 2020. 10 books that I've found, some memoirs, a lot of memoirs actually. The oldest book is 2.5 years old. They were all published in Great Britain from 2018 to 2021, because one book is actually published first next year. But one of the books was published in 2017, and I will have them here for you in chronological order as they were published. 10 reading recommendations. 4 of the books I will present I own already, and there will be 1 or 2 more acquisitions in the near future for myself. So let's get started. The first book that I want to recommend to you on my list of 10 is, as I said, in chronological order. It's a novel by a man called Andrew Sean Greer. It was published in 2017 in the United States. It was published in April 2018 by Abacus in London, and it won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2018. This is Less by Andrew Sean Greer. Arthur Less is a failed novelist. He's about to turn 50. His boyfriend for 8 or 9 years has left him, and he got a wedding and invitation, but he's not supposed to go. He's not going. Instead of this, he has a lot of lying literary invitations from all across the world. So Arthur Less is doing nothing else but flee, get out of the United States, and get on a tour around the world. And this is like Jules Verne's in 80 Days Around the World. This is a trip through many countries. He goes to Morocco, to Japan, to Germany, to Italy, to Mexico, to France, and is going to experience a lot of different things, very exciting things. He falls in love again, but he's also in great danger. Things happen to this guy all the time, and this is a funny and hilarious novel, not only about a gay American traveling around the world, but Andrew Sean Greer has said himself, it's about an American traveling around the world. A story about him. It's no less that the New York Times wrote about this book. It's no less than bedazzling, bewitching, and be wonderful. Andrew Sean Greer's Less. The second novel is a little bit more on the intellectual side. Not saying that Andrew Sean Greer's is not on the intellectual side, but this book is already called Theory, and it's by Dionne Brand and published by Knopf in Canada in September 2018. Theory is has an unnamed and ungendered protagonist who is supposed to write a huge dissertation about art, about culture, about gender, about class. But the narrator encounters 3 persons on their way to fulfill this dissertation. 3 persons the narrator falls in love with. There's Sela, who is beautiful and sensual. There is altruistic and passionate Yara, and there's the spiritual occultist Odalis. Each affair changes the perspective of the eye narrator on their dissertation. And 3 of the chapters, the book is written in 4 parts. 3 of the chapters deal with the 3 different love stories, which represent the heart, the head, and the spiritual. And the last chapter is dealing with, the last part of the book is dealing with the consequences these experiences have to the dissertation. So this book was written by Dionne Brand, a black woman who was born in Trinidad, came to Canada when she was 17 years old, and she studied at the University of Toronto, and now today she's one of Canada's most prolific writers, and she is a professor at the University of Guelph. That is Dionne Brand's theory. The third book I talked about yesterday, actually in my channel, and gave it a single review in my segment, I've Read Something. This is Ocean Vuong's novel, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, the novel of poetic and beautifully and carefully written story of a young gay Vietnamese American as a letter to his mother about his coming out, about the things that formed him, that shaped him, and that haunt him, and that give him the will and the strength to be a survivor. The fourth book I want to recommend to you is Nicole Benn is the author. The novel is called Patsy. It is published by One World Publications in July 2019. This is about a Jamaican woman, Patsy, who leaves her native Jamaica for a life in New York. She leaves behind both her mother, who is an evangelical and very demanding mother, religious mother, and she also leaves behind her little daughter by the name of, I think, Drew. I have to check that up. True is the name of the daughter. And she moves to New York because she got letters from her friend, from her youth friend, Cicely, who lives in New York. And Patsy wants to move, she moves to New York in order to live the life in America, but also she hopes to get engaged again with Cicely, the girl that she loved when she was younger. America is not like it was supposed to be, not the dream fulfilled that Patsy has dreamed all her life. She lives as a nanny, she lives as a bathroom attendant, and she has a very difficult life. At the same time, Nicole Benn is telling the story in 2 strains, and one strain is following Patsy in her life in New York, and the other strain follows Drew, the little girl left behind in Jamaica, her relationship with her father, and her coming to get her own identity and sexuality. So the story of 2 women of 2 generations in Jamaica and in New York are told by Nicole Benn in her novel Patsy. Number 5 is a memoir. It's also from Canada. It's the second book from Canada on my top 10 list, or on my 10 list of LGBTQ related books for the month of June. This is We Have Always Been Here by Samra Habib, published by River Run in September 2019. It's also a book of the Canada Read Selection in 2020, which is a beautiful initiative. I'll link it down here in the description below. Samra Habib has always searched for safety in her life. She came as a refugee to Canada. She was a member of the Ahmadi Muslim sect, a small group of Muslims. Her family was threatened and harassed by Islamic extremists in her native Pakistan, so they moved to Canada as refugees. In Canada, they get bullied, they get racist slurs and racist attacks by people, and they live again in a very difficult situation. And Samra is also married, an unwanted marriage. She's promised to a guy, she has to marry the guy in an arranged marriage. Samra, this book is an exploration of faith, art, love, and queer sexuality, a journey that takes Samra to the far reaches of the globe to uncover the truth that was within her all along. A triumphant memoir of forgiveness and family, both chosen and not. We Have Always Been Here is a rallying cry for anyone who has ever felt out of place, and a testament to to the power of fearlessly inhabiting one's truest self. If that doesn't sound strong, that's from the publishers about Samra Habib's We Have Always Been Here, a book that I bought about an hour ago for my Kindle. Number 6 is another memoir. This is Unicorn, the memoir of a Muslim drag queen by Amrou Al-Khadi, published by Fourth Estate in October 2019. This is about a God-fearing Muslim boy enraptured with their mother to a vocal queer drag queen estranged from their family. It's a heartbreaking and hilarious memoir about the author's fight to be true to themselves. This is a story about where a non-binary person tells the story of their growing up, of their identity finding, of their identity. Growing up in a strict Iraqi Muslim household, it didn't take long for me to realize I was different. When I was 10 years old, I announced to my family that I was in love with Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. The resultant fallout might best be described as something like the Iraqi version of Jerry Springer's The Opera. And that was just the beginning. This is the story of how I got from there to here, about my teenage obsession with marine biology and how fluid aquatic life helped me understand my non-binary gender identity. A very interesting story, a beautiful story told. Amrou Al-Khadi, Unicorn, memoir of a Muslim drag queen. The book number 7, I was thinking about putting Bernardino Evaristo's Girl, Woman, Other on that list because there's a very stark and there's a very strong and gripping chapter about an abusive lesbian relationship. But then I decided to go for In the Dream House, a memoir by Carmen Maria Machado, because at least from the abusiveness or from the depiction of an abusive same-sex relationship, it is the same issue, and the whole memoir deals with this. It's the author's memoir, Carmen Maria Machado, who went to the Iowa Writers' Workshop, who had several relationships that were not so very giving with men, and who meets a girl at the Iowa Writers' Workshop, a petite Harvard blonde, as it is described. And this woman, after the relationship, she said to Carmen Maria Machado, "You're not allowed to write about this. Don't you ever write about this. Do you fucking understand me?" The woman Carmen Maria Machado fell in love with has a cabin outside Bloomington, Indiana, and this house was called the Dream House. They get involved, and the woman gets, very soon after they are a couple, the woman gets abusive and she gets paranoid, accuses Carmen Maria Machado, of having affairs with almost everybody, including her own dad. And cruelty is often followed by sweetness and denial, so the relationship goes on and on and on, and then there's a breakup. It's a horror book. It's really a horror about a relationship, but it's also a ravishingly beautiful book, a tender, incandescent memoir like no other. There's no doubt that Machado is one of the brightest literary talents around, says her beautiful publisher in London, England, Serpent's Trail, that published the book in January of 2020. A gay man, 34-year-old from the American South, a gay black man coming from the American South, that is maybe not so easy. He tells his story. He's a poet. He's Saeed Jones. He tells his life story, tells it in small vignettes about his mother, about his grandmother, about his lovers, his friends, and about strangers. He blends journalism with poetry, and he has written a memoir as an examination of race and queerness, power and vulnerability, love and grief. This is my number 8 on the list, and this is How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones, that has been praised by many people, among them, I think the first one I saw this book was The Ink and Paper Block with Russell. We're coming to very contemporary books that have been published in the recent weeks. The next one is Rainbow Milk by Paul Mendez, Dialogue Books, London, April 2020. This is an intersectional coming-of-age story of a black British man brought up as a Jehovah's Witness and then moving from Wolverhampton to London to become a gay sex worker. And this is like Ocean Vuong's book that I talked about yesterday, that I also mentioned here. It is a book about where there are a lot of similarities between the protagonist and the author. Nevertheless, it's fictional. The Guardian The Guardian has named Paul Mendez as one of Britain's most promising debut novelists of 2020. And there's one final book, and that is The Subtweet by Vivek Shraya. This is Canadian as well. It's published by ECW Press in April 2020 and will be published in the UK first in 2021. Vivek Shraya is a trans person from Canada. Her new novel is about two women falling not in love but in friendship. Neela Devaki is a famous singer. One of her songs gets covered by an internet celebrity called Rukmini. The two people meet, they become good friends. Neela's fame descends while Rukmini is getting more and more popular. Both of them meet. A tweet comes out on the internet, and this is leading to a great firestorm on the internet, which implodes their friendship and gives them no chance of continuing this. This is the second novel by Vivek Shraya, and my book number 10 on the list. Celebrated multidisciplinary artist Vivek Shraya. Second novel is a stirring examination of making art in the modern era, a love letter to brown women, an authentic glimpse into the music industry, and a nuanced exploration of the promise and peril of being seen. These completes my list of 10 books for the LGBTQ month. All of them are super interesting, and I know there are many more out there. I own 4 of these books. I will certainly acquire 1, 2, or 3, maybe all of them, but I will read some of them in the future, and I will give a review in my segment, I've Read Something. That was all for today. For the LGBTQ month list, there's a little more information about all the books down below and about all the authors. Subscribe to my channel and leave a comment if you liked what you've seen. If you don't like what you've seen, write something and tell me how to be better. Tomorrow I will do a book haul. And don't forget the Global Pride March on the 27th and 28th of June, which will be broadcasted live on the internet. Thank you for watching. Thanks for being a subscriber. And thanks. And if you're new to this channel, I love you for being here. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, and bye-bye.